Oh man, a game that I had a whole bunch of fun with in 2009 finally came in the mail. I can't wait to pop this bad boy in and get back to all those good times. Let me just grab the Xbox. All I have to do is get it hooked up and, oh man, all the room in the designated space that I want to put my stuff in is filled up with retro gaming consoles. If only there was a way that I could experience all the games on these classic consoles without needing to take up so much space. Hey everyone. So today, rather than covering a game or talking about some part of gaming that I really like, I wanted to do something else and talk about my opinions regarding real hardware versus emulation. Because I've seen a lot of people giving their opinions on this, and I wanted to just lay mine out and see what y'all think. Right off the bat, the main difference that I want to talk about is going to be accessibility. Accessibility is the #1 thing that emulation has beyond any other option. You got your retro handhelds. All consoles now will run on other consoles. You can install RetroArch on microwaves now. It's just incredible. When I was a kid trying to mod my crappy PSP 1000 to play PS1 games, I never would have thought that I'd have something like a Retroid Pocket 2S that can play literally everything up to certain GameCube games just in my pocket. It doesn't even have a fan. Like, you can't take your PS2 on a plane. It's just not gonna work. I know people who bring gaming consoles with them to hotels and weddings and things, but I really think it's a major pain in the butt, especially when, okay, so you get off the plane, you get to the hotel, and the first thing you have to do is hook up all your stuff to the TV. I just don't think it's that great of a time. I don't think it's that good of an idea. Another thing I want to point out too, I feel like a similar kind of thought shift happened right when cloud storage hit the scene. The point of cloud storage was really never to replace massive storage volumes. It wasn't really meant to supplant that. The entire point of it was not volume, it was you would put shared documents, or me, for example, I put all of my emulators and all my ROMs up there because they were super small at the time, so that literally anywhere I could just download them out of the cloud and run them on whatever PC I was running on. I was a really cool kid, okay? Also, graphics, there's no contest here. Emulation looks unbelievable compared to real hardware. These games feel like remasters when you simply tick up the internal resolution. I'm telling you what, especially GameCube and Wii on Dolphin, you can do some crazy stuff with what the community has put together. I mean, I'm talking full-on texture replacements to make the games look better than the ones that are available on Steam right now. It is wild, and even with the best scalers, you cannot get graphics like these out of those older consoles, and that's just a fact. You could add anti-aliasing, you could add CRT or different TV filters, mess with the color spaces. You could never do this with real hardware. So I think there's a whole camp of people who really care about that sort of thing, and that's who these options are gonna be for. They're going to enjoy them the most. Now, we gotta talk about the cost of even hooking these things up to the TV. My SNES is going. I have bad capacitors in it, which are causing video problems. Mega Man X has weird jail bars all over it. Mega Man X2 has noise and jail bars and the whole nine. I can't even play Super Mario RPG. And this is hundreds of dollars to fix, right? You're always buying things from people you don't know on secondhand marketplaces because you can't get anything new, so you're taking risks. Let's go back to the SNES. Even if it gets fixed, even if I fix it, the original models are having problems with their PPUs going out, which, long story short, cannot be fixed without a donor board, so that's that. I also care a lot about future-proofing. I don't necessarily feel confident that it will just keep working the same. I mean, there was even an article recently, the older consoles now are playing the music back at a higher pitch or a faster speed than they used to because these things are over 30 years old and getting up there. You know how many Q-tips and alcohol I've gone through to clean all this crap from eBay? I recently switched back to real hardware from a fully emulated setup. I have been emulating games since the early 2000s. Final Fantasy IV, I think, was the first game that I emulated and actually beat all the way through on an emulator. And it was one of the only Final Fantasy games that I had ever beaten at that point. So we go way back. I remember playing Final Fantasy IX on EPSXE. Back then, you had to try all these different builds and plugin setups to make the game even function on my old silver Dell something or other laptop. I was also at a thrift store back in January of this year, and I found a little tiny CRT TV, which I had wanted forever. I don't like having huge setups. I like having compact setups that are easy to move around or disassemble. Fun fact about me, I'm the type of person who likes to rearrange furniture at 3 a.m. I'm one of those. So having the ability to just pack everything up or move it all around is important to me. I'm never putting things in one place and then just leaving there. To go along with the CRT, I went ahead and bought a SNES Junior, hooked it up, and got to playing some games on it, and I was really liking it. But the other issue became all I had was the SNES. Then finally, we got the big one. Input lag. Input lag. I know. You've all heard it. You don't want to hear any more about it, but here's another guy talking about it. So a younger friend of mine made a statement that he, quote, couldn't get into the older games. We were walking around a thrift store and the thrift store had a few CRT TVs that were available. He looked at them and said, oh damn, I've wanted to get one of these so I could hook my Wii up to it. And I was telling him about all the stuff that I have and all the stuff that I'm into. He responded that he likes them, but he just can't get into them. And I'm gonna wager the reason that is because we're talking about emulation. The games just feel different. They're less responsive. Modern Vintage Gamer just made a whole video about this, talking about how the Switch 2 GameCube games are suffering from this exact thing. However, the truth I want to drive home is that, look, I have the ability to play these things side by side. Most people just don't have these consoles anymore. And even if they do, they may not work as well anymore. So just because you can hook them up and play them doesn't mean you're gonna wanna be doing that. Emulation makes perfect sense for what I see as a couple different camps of people. In one camp, you have kids who are looking to explore retro gaming. Never grew up with it, never knew what these games were, but are interested in seeing where gaming got its roots. Another thing I always like to point out is all of this started, the NES came out in 1985. That was not that long ago. I know it's a super long time ago, ha ha ha. But I mean, video games came out as a concept in people's lifetimes. Like, that's crazy. And it's moved so fast and come so far that if you're a little kid growing up today, you might wonder about all of these games from the 80s and 90s and early 2000s and 2010s, which kills me to say. And the other camp, older people like me, who played all these games as kids but moved on to the newer consoles or just left gaming behind entirely as they grew up, who are looking to get back into the hobby. I think both of those camps are totally valid. And I think both should be championed, but I don't think we should confuse the two. I think we should see them as very much different than each other and very much different experiences. Let's talk about even hooking these things up to the TV. You're going to need a scaler. And first of all, I know you can buy crappy ones for $5 on Amazon that quote work, but I would highly recommend going with the RetroTink or the OSSC ones. I'm a RetroTink guy, and I've had no problems with them. I started with the 2X Pro because I'd never used something like this before and didn't feel comfortable dropping the $320 on the 5X. So I just went with the 2X, despite having mostly 480i consoles, but I don't want to talk about it. I should have just listened to my gut. What are you gonna do? Then, if all of your CDs and cartridges have stopped working, you're gonna need a different way to load the games on the consoles. Just doing this and trying to look at old forums from 2006 and load these underdocumented software, like loading games onto a PS2 from a USB stick over a LAN connection because the Slim doesn't have fast enough USB ports. I feel myself beginning to get stressed even thinking about these OPL differences that I had to deal with a few months ago. You're gonna need hard drives, SD cards, flash carts, a ton of stuff to even get the games running. And even then, you need the consoles, the controllers. If they used memory cards, you're gonna need those. It's a lot up front, especially if you're not sure you're even gonna like it yet. I mean, you can spend $1,000 getting 3 consoles on a TV before you know what happened. Most people can't just hook up their emulation solution to their TV and also hook up their GameCube to their TV and just load the same game and play them side by switching the input. I promise if you do, you would absolutely notice a difference, but I think it's an unrealistic thing to expect people to do. What I'm trying to drive home is that if you were in that second camp that I mentioned, where these were things you played back in 2003 or 1993 and wanted to just pick them up and try them out again, you should absolutely do that. But I don't think you should absolutely go out and buy all the stuff necessary to hook all these old consoles back up to the TV. At the end of the day, you could fit every console that ever came out onto this little guy. Well, okay, not this one, a more powerful one. And that's amazing. I believe gaming should be available for everyone. Anyone who wants to check out something, especially retro, should be able to. There shouldn't be a $500 wall standing in between you and those experiences. I remember showing a friend how to set up PCSX2 while we were in college so he could play FFX, since, again, I was like the king of emulation. And when it booted up, the look on his face was amazing. I know exactly how it felt to see an old game you haven't seen in forever boot up for the first time. While I was making this video, I actually ran across another video on this topic who was comparing a game bought on the PS5, I believe, store versus like DuckStation. And his point was that it was not running well on, quote, real hardware, and decided to emulate it instead because DuckStation gave him a much better experience. It made me wonder, I was like, do people not have a clear understanding of this? If a game from another console is running on another console, it's emulation. Which means it's gonna have all the regular emulation stuff. It's gonna have input lag, especially if this is some weird like proprietary Sony thing and not like a community-driven, developed for 15 years, chock full of features. It's gonna have glitches, visual problems, but it's also gonna have all that other great stuff. Rewind, save states, all the stuff, fast forwarding, slow down, all the stuff that gives it a critical edge against real hardware. I feel like we're always talking about one or the other, and I just wanted to put my flag down that there's room for both and kind of talk about the differences and talk about the kinds of camps that would appreciate one over the other. Hey, I hope you enjoyed my thoughts. It's just me talking about stuff I like, so if you watched this far, I'd love to hear what you thought in the comments below. Thank you so much again. I always appreciate you checking out my channel, and have a great rest of the day.